This is all about acrylic paint, and what we're going to talk about acrylic paint is what kinds of acrylic paint there are, what's the difference, why is some of it seem like a crappy quality while some of it seems like a better quality. So I'm going to go through different types of paint that I use. I usually paint from tubes, and I've gone through everything from student grade to professional grade, all different types of paint: acrylic, casing, gouache, watercolor, oil, water soluble oils. But this is going to be just acrylic. So the way I explain acrylic is it's basically liquid plastic. It's almost like dries into a very thin film of plastic. And what it is you have your binder, which is your polymer, and the binder is like a glue, and it holds together and suspends little pigments or particles of paint, which are, if you kind of think about a computer, it's basically like the DPI. So the cheaper paint is, the lower the DPI is, right? The lower the dots per square inch. This is basically the less particles of pigment you have in that paint. And usually there's more binder and there's less pigment. So one of the most, I think, paints that most people are familiar with is this Basics, this Liquitex Basics. And this is a student grade paint. It's actually not a bad student grade paint. It's pretty good. It has a really good adhesion. They have a really great variety of colors. One of the things I like about Basics is like the caps are easy to take off, right? You can, even see, I like to take it off here, because after a while, what happens is that paint, if you don't keep it clean, this is basically plastic, right? That's just plastic that's dried up, and it kind of keeps the paint. So this is your film, right? And that's pretty good color in there, right? If you get some cheap craft paint, you don't get this really nice durable piece of plastic, right? Like this thing is hard to tear. So that's not bad paint. Liquitex does a really good job. And this is considered student grade paint because it has a little less pigment. It doesn't have some of the real pigments, like some of the cadmiums and some of the colors. A lot of them are hues, which means that they're kind of like faux pigments. They kind of they don't have the cadmium pigment or the actual pigment in some of the more expensive colors. So this is a great starter paint. I really think it's fine. A lot of people get kind of snobby about it and say, this has bad adhesion or whatever. I think it's great if you prep your canvas right, or you prep your surface right, and then you seal it and varnish it and protect it and take care of it. Of course, you can go up to any painting and scratch paint off. It's going to happen. So this is, like I said, it's considered a student grade, but it is a very decent paint, I think. So here's a newer one that I came across, Amsterdam. Similar tube, similar quality, but for me, I think this paint has a little more binder. It's got a little less saturation than even the Basics does. So out of these two of student grade paints, I actually prefer the Basics more. I feel like this paint, after using it, it's a little thinner. The adhesion doesn't seem that great. But it's not bad. These kind of things are really good for underpaintings. If you're painting pretty thin, I think this stuff works really well. Here's another paint. This is what Master's Touch, and this is a burnt sienna, which is an earth tone. So a lot of times when you buy paint, what makes a paint more expensive, like if you're buying the same brand but in different colors, a lot of times what makes that paint more expensive is the pigment. So burnt sienna is an earth tone. Your earth tones like burnt sienna, yellow ochre, titanium white. These are really cheap, easy to find pigments, so they don't cost much to make these earth tones. This paint's okay. It's kind of just run-of-the-mill, nothing great. Still kind of thin, a lot more binder than there is pigment. So you got to kind of, when you use paint like this, you kind of have to layer it a lot. You have to layer it. If you want that really opaque, saturated color on your canvas, you have to add many layers. And so a lot of times people ask me, how do you get your paintings to look like the paint is so opaque? And that's the thing, is you just have to constantly put layers over it until it doesn't look thin anymore. And the thinner it is, the more layers you have to add. Sometimes mixing, some more opaque colors with things like this. If you're, so on the back of here, it says opaque, but you're gonna go through, it's not as opaque as it says it is. So usually I add a lot more colors. So moving up, this is also student grade. You can usually tell, one of the easy ways to tell a student grade is the tubes are usually bigger, and there's not much price difference from one color to the next. They're usually kind of all in the same price range, no matter what the color. Once you move into professional grade paint, something like this golden acrylic. I bought this big tube of raw sienna. This is another earth tone, and you start to get into a different price range as you get into different pigments. So one of the things I like about these professional paints is on the back, there's usually a lot of information about what the color is. So with this one, they have a scale of how transparent or opaque this color is, and it's a little more towards the opaque end. They also have a scale of whether this paint is matte or gloss. And that kind of stuff matters when you're painting and you wonder, why is this part of my painting shiny and this part is not? So you really should look at the way you're using this color, and you can add mediums, matte medium, to kind of dull things out. Usually that's better for things in the background. And then gloss usually reflects more light. So it's, I like to think it's better for things in the foreground. Or if you're just doing it for like textural things like water or something like that, it's good in that sense. So it has a scale how thin or how thick it is. It's kind of right in the middle there. And then there's another one that there's another scale that says low tinting or high tinting. And golden, this particular golden brand is a professional grade paint. There's a lot of pigment in here. It's a little heavier. The binder's a little thicker, so it is going to be a little easier to work with if you're really trying to make opaque colors. But you got to be careful though, because there are certain pigments that are transparent. So in order to get to that opacity that you want, you really have to pay attention to what type of paint you're using. It might be a transparent paint. Like this, I think this is actually one of my favorite brands, is the Liquitex heavy body acrylics. And these are my absolute favorite paint. I really like how much information they have on the back. So on the back of this one, it tells you this is a transparent color. And this is a beautiful color, by the way. This is quinacridone magenta. And this is an absolutely beautiful color. I love this color. It'll also tell you if it's a single pigment or if there's more than one pigment in here. And the more pigment you get in here, usually the more opaque it gets. And the quicker it can get mottled and go to like brown and become like ugly paint. So beautiful color, quinacridone. And one of the things I really love about this Liquitex heavy body versus the golden is just the simple fact that this cap is large and easy to take off. Because after a while, if you keep this paint for a while, these caps can get really hard to take off. They can also get really hard to put back on. And that is definitely like something I'm not super thrilled about. But as far as it goes for me, the cap I think is superior here. I think that the amount of information that Liquitex adds on the back of here is more relevant than what golden adds. And also, I just feel like this paint is a little better. I just like it a little more. So you'll notice when you buy these Liquitex heavy body acrylics that there's series numbers on here. Like this one is a series 3. So the higher the series number, the more expensive the paint. The lower the series number, like series 1, those are going to be your earth tones. Those are going to be cheaper paints because those are cheaper pigments. So as you move higher up in that series, you're going to get more expensive because you're getting either a harder to get pigment, right? Like some of these pigments are like cadmium. They have to go mine these things or whatever, they're a little harder to get. This is a series 2A, this iridescent white. I don't know what this series is, but this is a very expensive color. This green gold, heavy body, transparent, and this one was really expensive, I remember. And I use these sparingly, and I try and like use up some of my other paints and some of my earth tones for my underpaintings, and then I kind of come back with these more expensive colors to just really like bring out other areas. So that's kind of it for acrylic. Hopefully you got something out of that. I'll be back with some more products that I like to use and paint with. Hopefully that was helpful. Comment below if you have any questions or anything to add, some mistake I might have made, or something that you prefer over these types of paint.